Of course, there are extremist groups all over the place, and there are many levels of crazy. But the worst are the most dangerous, and by that measure, three stand out. Number one is the global elite. They're well hidden for several reasons. They don't allow their presence to be mentioned in the media. The companies invested in American corporations are concealed by so called privacy laws, and the public are too dumb or too cowardly to name their masters. They have a couple of ways of avoiding the reality, from conspiracy theory to ignoring the facts on the subject. Yet the facts are there. In the 1970s, financial interests across the globe made investments in our media, universities, and corporations. Among them were totalitarian states and our mortal enemies. They included sweatshop industry in Beijing and oil money in Moscow and Riyadh. Wall Street and the financial government allowed this, and it was a foul treachery that's never been mentioned in the halls of academe. The interests of these powers were immediately reflected in the public square and government policy. This was marked by propaganda campaigns in the media and university, and by a set of class war policies that have dominated the economy ever since. I've talked about this in other videos. Suffice to say that it's imperative to understand the whole operation, and it's explained in detail in the Big Book of Propaganda on Amazon. The propaganda is especially important. It's been used to brainwash two other groups that are helping to wreck our society. These are the far left and the Republican voting base. Both are dingbats, and both are easily tricked by the media and university. The history on this could not be clearer. Back in the day, the left were conned into voting for Nader, which delivered the presidency to George W. It should have been a harsh warning that they didn't understand the two-party system or third-grade arithmetic. So if Albert has 10 apples and George has 9 apples, but Ralph takes 2 of Albert's apples, who has the most apples? That would be George, who, as a side act, ignored the warnings about 9/11, took us into a war with the wrong enemy, ignored Hurricane Katrina, and wrecked the economy. The left also rioted over an anecdotal video, reduced the Democratic majority in the 2020 election, are now agitating for a terrorist army, and again alienating half the electorate. This is not just stupidity. They actually despise this country. That made them easy prey for the cherry-picked university history and insane anti-Western social theories. They actually want to put our society to the torch. Meanwhile, the culture war played on Republican hatreds, tricking them into supporting globalism and the range of supply-side policy. That means tax cuts for the rich, increased spending, and a balanced budget. Of course, these are contradictory, and here's another genius crowd who don't understand basic arithmetic. Again, stupidity is not the prime factor. After 50 years of cultural assassination against others, conservatives are so full of hatred for the liberal establishment that they're willing to sabotage public health, wreck the economy, and overthrow American democracy itself. The hatred and stupidity of these darlings is plain to see, but it's not what makes them so dangerous. The elite are greedy and sadistic, with control of our institutions, but without a shred of loyalty or integrity. Conservatives number in the tens of millions. That's more than enough to win elections, as we've seen to our sorrow. Still acting out Confederate hatred, they're currently in love with the dictatorship in Moscow, and the left are heavily subsidized by corporate interests. They're placed into positions of power where they shovel cultural sabotage into society. They're tools of another hostile power, namely Middle Eastern oil money. The facts shape the conclusion. These are the worst and most dangerous groups in America, and confronting them is the work of our time. One possibility is for moderate liberals and conservatives to join forces and to get rid of the elite policies in both parties. Remove wokeism, open borders, and anti Western fraud on the left, and treason, culture war, and supply side on the right. After that, there would be nothing to fear from either side. We could get to work on a common sense, bipartisan agenda, and it would bring working class people flocking to both parties. Unfortunately, liberals don't bother with civic responsibilities. And because these policies are aimed at low wage workers, the voters signed off on them faster than a cobra on meth. Conservatives profit from the globalist system, and when profit is involved, the Republican brain goes into a self serving tailspin. So the bad actors will have carte blanche for the foreseeable future. The global elite will continue driving our institutions into the ground while two deranged mobs run wild in the streets. So strap in. Until the moderate middle get off their butts and take action, it's going to be a violently bumpy ride.